Hi, I'm Precious, and this afternoon I'll just be talking about the newly launched AWS Local Zone in Lagos, Nigeria, and how to basically enable it and deploy resources to it. A local zone is not a region, which means that if you've been trying to switch to it from here, it's not going to work because it's not, you won't see it here because it's not a region, it's just a local zone. And the way local zones work, they are basically just an extension of a region. The way AWS categorizes its region is by continent. So if you come here, you see that Europe, everything in Europe is categorized, everything in South America is categorized. So your local zone is usually an extension of a region in your continent. In this case, Nigeria is in Africa, which means that we'll go to the list of regions in Africa. You see that we just have one region. So by default, it means that our local zone, the local zone in Lagos, Nigeria, is going to be an extension of the region in Cape Town. Now, that being said, we'll go ahead and enable this. In case you don't have a region called Africa Cape Town in your own console, you can scroll down to manage regions and just click on manage regions, and then you can go ahead and enable it from the list of regions here. So you see I have a list of regions here, you can go ahead and enable it. In my own case, I already enabled it before this video, so I'll click back. Now that that is enabled, the next thing I have to do is to go ahead and switch to this region. So when I switch to this region, it gives me the ability to enable my local zone from this region. So now when I switch to this region, you can only enable your local zone from your EC2 dashboard. So if you're not currently on your EC2 dashboard, you can click on EC2 for you to navigate to the EC2 dashboard. Now that you're on the EC2 dashboard, the next thing to do is to click on zones, right? When you click on zones, you're going to see Nigeria Lagos, which is our local zone, and you can go ahead and enable it by clicking on manage. I already enabled mine, and clicking on enabled, you click on enabled and update it. It's going to take about a minute or two to update, and you have that ready. So now that you've enabled your local zone, the next thing you need to do is to just go ahead and create a subnet, and you now have to deploy all your compute resources, database, and storage needs into that subnet. So it's just very easy to create a subnet. Click on VPC, then go ahead and click on subnet, and after that you can now create a subnet. So when you create a subnet, you see VPC, select the already existing VPC. So let's call this test subnet, and availability zone. Now you can see the newly created local zone here, so we can go ahead and create this. Then I'll also go ahead and I have an existing subnet CIDR, so I'm just going to paste this here. So I can click on create subnet, and we are done. Going forward, we can go ahead and deploy resources into this subnet so that it deploys those resources within the local zone, the Nigerian Lagos local zone. So I don't think test subnet is the right or the proper name we should give to this subnet. Maybe we can just go ahead and give it the Nigerian Lagos subnet. So this means that we can go ahead and deploy resources to it, and it's obvious that when we are deploying resources to it, that we are deploying to the local zone in Lagos. So we'll just go ahead and try setting up a simple EC2 instance and launch an instance. Then I'll go ahead and call it maybe local instance. So I'm just going to go ahead, and everything here looks okay. One thing you need to pay attention, this is the most important part of this video, is to make sure that you're not deploying to just any subnet. Make sure you're deploying to that Nigerian Lagos subnet. So this is how this also applies to your databases and other setups that you need to do maybe setting up an ECS cluster and all that relates to selecting a specific subnet. So when you deploy this to the Nigerian Lagos subnet, it means that it is deployed to the local zone.